we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. I'm your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time watching, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, if you're wanting to reach out to us, hit us up on our Instagram or our Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel and hit us up in the comments if you'd like. Again, thank you for everyone who has been so far, and thank you all for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. If you did want to support the podcast, you can always hit our Patreon, patreon.com/BigmarkPod. But if not, again, I just thank you for being here. And if there's anything I can ask of you, if you just share the podcast with one friend. If you share it with one friend, we can double the podcast overnight, the listenership overnight. That'd be awesome. That'd be great. Spread the word, spread the love, spread the community of the Bigmark podcast. We're all like-minded. We're all into different stuff. That's why I like to do all kinds of different stuff. So here's another episode that I've been really excited to do. It's kind of been a few weeks in the making now. Because I saw the show a few weeks ago, but it of course prompted me to do an episode on the Milk Carton Kids because I was privileged, I was honored, I had the opportunity to see the Milk Carton Kids, and I went with the three other members of Reckless Harbor with John, Trevor, and Lauren, and it was a wonderful band outing, and we all drove into the city together, and just phenomenal, just really nice moment with the band, but also an absolutely beautiful concert and a wonderful, like I said, opportunity. But it was such an experience that, I'm truly, truly grateful that we were able to go and see them. The Milk Carton Kids, I was kind of surprised when I was first telling, I was telling a bunch of my friends at work that I was going to see the show, and they're all pretty well versed in music. I'd say a lot of my coworkers we're all, relatively cut from the same cloth. But I was really surprised and kind of taken aback at how many people didn't really know who the Milk Carton Kids were. They're an indie folk duo from Eagle Rock, California. Kenneth Pattingale, which is gotta be one of the most upper class names I've ever heard in my life. Amazing. And Joey Ryan, which is one of the most blue collar names I've ever heard. So it's hilarious seeing both their names kind of next to each other, but they're wonderful souls, both of them. It seems to come through in their performance and their music, and the way they're so sincere, the way they speak with each other. It's almost like watching kind of a stand-up act between the two of them. They're kind of doing this little Abbott and Costello routine. It's like Abbott and Costello met Simon and Garfunkel. And it's just this beautiful détente, ebb and flow, and just back and forth between them the whole time in their dialogue between each other in between songs, and also in the way they play. They just have this way. And in this documentary, Another Day, Another Time, which I've done an episode on, which you should all go check out. Maybe I'll throw it in a link here in this video. But that was the first time I ever heard of the Milk Carton Kids. But in that documentary, Marcus Mumford is also in the documentary. He talks about listening to the Milk Carton Kids and saying you can't really tell who's singing and who's playing. They both have a guitar, both are singing at the same time, and the way everything kind of ebbs and flows. I keep using that, but there is this beautiful kind of rise and fall with all their songs, but the interplay and the call and answer and everything that happens in the music and in their voices is just so beautiful that you don't really know who's doing what. It's just this beautiful eminence of sound from two people who kind of blend into one. It's beautiful. It's like a true expression of love, even though I'm pretty sure these guys both are straight dudes and they don't have any, they're friends, but I'm pretty sure they have lives and stuff. So I don't think they're romantically in love, but there's an expression of love there, not regardless. And it's just beautiful to see. And, we saw them in a church too, which is like, it's one of those things where I don't know if you've ever seen a show in a church. I've seen two now. The first one, well, I mean, other than like church, like mass, I guess you could call that a show. Like the choir and things. But I got to see Winter Sleep play in a church here in Hamilton, and it was really, really interesting because, Winter Sleep's obviously more of a rock band. They are a rock band, especially more than the fucking Milk Carton Kids. But full drums, guitar, bass, like rock and roll, electric, everything. And I don't know if it's just like programming or just like people who have been, a lot of people were raised in some type of religious environment. Doesn't have to be Catholic, but Christian in general. And if you were at all, as soon as you enter a church, I'm sure you kind of like snap back into the mode. I know I did. And then a lot of people did that. And when you're sitting there in between songs, there's no talking, no one's chatting. It's like reverent looking. Like, it's not even like, even in a theater, like, I don't think it was like the way, like, you could be like, oh, it's a seating and people are sat. But like, even in like a theater, there's still like chitter chatter sometimes. And like, yeah, maybe it's a little bit more focused because that's just the listening experience. But again, like, it was wildly reverent. Again, in between songs, the band would stop and people would like clap for like 3 seconds and then just like go silent. And you could tell the band was kind of like, it must have been hard. I could only imagine being them, kind of seeing a room and like, it's like the church is full. It's not like there's only 60 people in the thing. Imagine sitting in front of an audience, full seats and no one's cheering and clapping or like loud, or at least like getting excited kind of thing. Now, again, for the Milk Carton Kids, it kind of made a little bit more sense. And this church is absolutely beautiful. Trinity St. Paul's. If you ever get a chance to see a show there, do. It's beautiful inside. Very much the architect loved circles. A lot of circles involved. A lot of circles in like a triangle pattern, which is probably called something in architecture, which I don't know. Trifecta. But it's beautiful inside, and there's big pipe organ right in front of where the altar would stand usually, but I guess they moved that out for performance, and they just had like a beautiful stage, and there was a floor area, if you will, like down low, and then this kind of balcony mezzanine thing. And the sound was beautiful, and they had an opening act, Alex Page, and she was just fantastic. It was just her and a guitar, and she kind of came out on stage and was like, oh, I haven't played in a church in a while. It's like nice to be back. So again, and that goes for a lot of musicians, especially, ones that come up through like gospel and choir music, obviously they probably have played a lot in church. But again, Alex Page was phenomenal. Her songs were gorgeous and heart-wrenching. She did a really good cover. Oh my God, what did she do? I can't remember. It might come to me. But again, just her and a guitar, and everyone's just purely listening. And it's just such a wonderful way to just see music, right? Because again, a lot of times you're going out to a show, and honestly, I feel like I'm starting to become like a bit of a curmudgeon with this. But like, I'm starting to like going out to like big concerts less and less now, especially like outdoor ones, especially festivals, especially ones that are like crazy crowded in a huge arena where you're dealing with half the people, you're getting distracted by the audience. There's all kinds of buffoonery going on. People are ODing, people are fucking tripping out, too drunk, too whatever. And you start to lose the experience. Yeah, you're there in the building and the music is happening kind of thing. But unless you're like right up on the floor, or just kind of like with a good sight line, you still kind of lose that. Like, I'm all for like going to see a band in a smaller bar, because you can kind of, if you really want, you can get like right up in there and just fucking feel the show. But again, there's something really special about these church shows. So when they ended up coming out, it's just wonderful. And they're, like I said, they're funny, and they both sing, they both play guitar, and at some point Joey picks up a banjo, which is super cool too. But they've been at it since 2011. Don't get me wrong, they've been at it since 2011. They've released 6 albums, but they're kind of they're in that perfect zone of, they've been doing it for a while now. 13 years is a long time, but they're so comfortable on stage and so affable, and it's just wonderful. And I was doing some research, and I learned how they first ever met each other. And they met actually after Joey went to see Kenneth play a solo show, and he went up to him, and Joey was trying to do a solo thing himself, and it wasn't quite working out. And it kind of reminded me of the Reckless Harbor Story, the band I play in. That unfortunately I wasn't there, but during COVID, open mics were hard to come by, and if they were, it was hard to make them like relatively safe. So I think it was like a private thing, to be truthfully honest, because I've met the dude who put it on. I don't think he did it with any like City of Hamilton guidelines or anything, but he basically like floated out like a little raft out on the beach at Bayfront Park here in Hamilton, which is like a little park right on the on Lake Ontario and Hamilton Harbor. And there's a little beach there, and they kind of floated out this thing, and you could go and play on that. And obviously everything was socially distant there, and I don't know if they even used microphones or anything, but again, they were just doing what they could. Again, it was COVID times. And my buddy John, who I played in other bands with, John Harley, who's been a guest on the podcast, he went to one of these open mics, and my buddy Lauren, or to be my buddy Lauren and to be my buddy Trevor, were both doing solo sets themselves. And something pulled them together. I think they did a cover. I think they called each other up and everyone joined and they did a cover or something potentially. But they hit it off, and I think they jammed a few times, like maybe 2-3 times before I ever met them. But then they're like, "Hey, we need a bass player," and John's like, "Well, I know a guy." So again, there's always these things with the way bands start, and there's always some kind of quirky, or not always, but there can sometimes be that quirky story where it just took the guts of someone to kind of go up. It's much like the start of a relationship, right? Like sometimes you do have to, build up the guts and walk across the room and introduce yourself, One thing that I thought was really cool, and I noticed this before when I was watching that Another Day, Another Time documentary, is that Kenneth Pattendigo's guitar is like, it's an old Martin, and he plays it with like this little handkerchief on that, like near when he plays with a capo. So if you guys don't know anything about guitar, a capo basically just shortens the strings, changes the sound of the guitar. But in between the capo and the top of the guitar, the head of it, he wraps this handkerchief around it. And I think it's to like prevent some buzzing or something. Or it just looks really cool, because it definitely looks really cool. But again, I've mentioned the Another Day, Another Time documentary a few times already. But like I mentioned, that's what actually showed me the Milk Carton Kids for the first time. And it was kind of interesting because Another Day, Another Time, just to expand on a little bit before you go watch the other episode, Another Day, Another Time is a concert documentary film that was put on in concert with in collaboration with T-Bone Burnett, who is the musical director of a lot of the Coen Brothers movie, but specifically Inside Llewyn Davis, which is a great movie, it's about the New York folk scene in the 60s. And Llewyn Davis is the main character, and it's the trials and tribulations of him, as any Coen Brothers movie does. You window into someone's life and you window out. But of course, the music is all 60s folk. So T-Bone Burnett then kind of took this idea. I don't even know. They didn't really go into the impetus, which is beautiful, but they didn't really go too much into why he did this. But I think, again, in making a lot of the music for the movie, it just gave him the idea to be like, all right, let's have a little concert here. So they held a concert in New York City's Old Town Hall, which is a beautiful theater, and had all these artists that some of them were like actors. Like Oscar Isaac is the lead character. He plays Llewyn Davis. He plays inside Llewyn Davis. He plays Llewyn Davis, and he learned the songs and sang them himself, which is really cool when you watch the movie. And then Justin Timberlake, I don't know if he comes out for the documentary, but he's like involved in the movie and he sings on it. I know Adam Driver's in the movie, but he doesn't come out to the actual concert. They probably weren't ready. But they play some songs from there with the Punch Brothers, and then Marcus Mumford is involved, and Joan Baez, and also the first place I ever heard of Lake Street Dive, which is phenomenal. Their album Bad Self Portraits is actually 10 years old now. I'm sure Another Day, Another Time is probably rounded that corner and is about to be about 10 years old now too. But it's really interesting about how you can kind of get introduced to bands in ways that you'd never really think, right? Like, through documentaries, through TV shows. There's so many ways that you can kind of get yourself out there, and I feel like the Milk Carton Kids have never necessarily shied away from that. It seems like it's something that you sometimes have to be wary about. You don't want to have a song like the show The OC, that opening song California by Phantom Planet. It's actually a really good song, but anytime you hear about it, you're only going to hear that song from the OC, and like then you kind of have this like weird, or like the song from the Friends intro, like it must be like this weird thing as the band. Like, do you play that song live? Do people only know you for that song? Is it just played out and people hate that song now? It's sometimes maybe as a paradox. Maybe you might perceive it as selling out. But like I said, it gives you this opportunity to get out there and get in front of more people. And what's the point of making music if no one's listening, right? That's what I always say. That's what we always do. But again, a beautiful band where two people are doing something that's so beautifully intertwined all at once. And like I said, that beauty, if it's not shown to people and more people know about it, and hopefully this podcast is also part of growing that and letting people know that there are these bands out there. And yes, maybe they're not huge on Spotify, so maybe they're not going to come across your purview, or not saying like the Milk Carton Kids aren't that, but there's so many bands, so many deep bands that aren't going to be playing big arenas. And maybe they'll be playing smaller places in your town, but keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. Video blogs and music magazines, they're still important. There's still ways to see that new music, to hear that new music, podcasts and Instagram accounts and things like that. There's so much new music out there. I get it. It's hard. The little, or the yellow button, the little yellow button or something. She's really good. She has like a little Instagram account of like all this new music from all these different genres. The Yellow Button, I think her account's called. But again, there's so many ways to hear new music, and don't get caught up in the playlist zone, because sometimes you just hear the same thing over and over again. Don't get me wrong, there's magic in them playlists, and I've heard a lot of new music from that. But there's a lot of local record stores that are shutting down, but that's also another great resource. Jump in there, talk to the people there. They know about shit that's hitting the airwaves, so to speak. Angels in the airwaves. Anyway, like I said, hopefully today has been some type of way to spread the word and spread the knowledge about the Milk Carton Kids. Go check them out. Kenneth Pattengale and Joey Ryan. I almost called him Kenneth Pendergrass. But Kenneth Pattengale, Joey Ryan, check them out. Milk Carton Kids, beautiful albums. They just released a new album last year. Fantastic. Check them out. Also, let your friends know about the Bigmark podcast, Instagram, Patreon. Love y'all. YouTubes. See you soon. Peace.